And now, for a very special address, I'd like to call upon stage a veteran when it comes to banking. Yes, he's had over 25 years of experience, a very special interest when it comes to rural housing and microfinance. Ladies and gentlemen, let us put our hands together as I welcome Mr. Sriram Kalyanaraman, Managing Director and CEO, National Housing Bank. Thank you for joining us, sir.
I'll give you the pointer. The pointer is also there.
No, I'm comfortable with this. Dr. Nandita Chatterjee, Secretary to Government of India, Ms. Sandhya Dhar of ET Edge, financial services veterans, CEOs, my wonderful colleagues in NHB who always manage to put these events together or work with the team to make this possible, friends in media, ladies and gentlemen. It's probably, as Sanjeev had said before me, while we have had many of the smaller seminars, a seminar of this scale, and with the real people who make it happen, I think it's probably for the first time. With that, let me start with a quote from Shem Potak, the Jewish author, who said, "A blink of eye is nothing, but the eye that blinks is something. A span of life is nothing, but the man who lives that span is something. He can fill the span with meaning, so its quality is immeasurable." Now look at this, a house for all, and each Indian a house for him will make all our fellow countrymen's span, a quality of their life really immeasurable. That is the scale of things which we are talking about. Just to get into the housing finance for a minute, with a country of 1.2 billion and with 2.9 square kilometers area, we have a housing finance industry, both PSBs and HFC put together, of about approximately 10 lakh crores, as we call it, right? We did the new bookings of about 2.9 lakh crores with about 30 lakhs units last year, the last financial year. And for the first time we collected data, we found that about 33% of HFC's lending, new lending, was below 10 lakh, which means the average ticket size of the house should be about 12 lakhs or so, and about 30% of the banks was below 10 lakhs. And what is more revealing here is, while the below 10 lakhs delinquencies, 90 plus of the banks was at 2.6% or so, the HFCs were at 0.92%. Now the whole thing gets into something that how effectively we understand the segment, how effectively the financial players are able to underwrite the segment, and how effectively you are able to put together an underwriting method and formulas for an irregular income sector. It proves by the lowest delinquency on the whole thing. So one of the thinking which all of us are thinking is now how best to make more funds available within the channel to HFCs to concentrate more and more on the segment. But the good news, as I again said, is 30% of the bookings below 10 lakhs is not a bad thing at all. Just to give a background, the urban population is estimated to move to about up by 41% in next 3 years, which is to 377. Primarily aided by two things: migration of population from rural and also split of the joint family system. Right? Even at the lowest segments, the joint family system is falling off. And when I was addressing this in the World Bank, somebody said in 10 years' time, if the husband and wife lives together, you will call it a joint family, right? But it has a different challenges when we think of housing for all, because the needs for housing increases, pressure on infrastructure increases. With about 4 crores houses on the rural and 2 crores on the urban, it provides a very big challenge, which is probably one of the largest goals, right? When I said this and presented, the first reaction on the international forum is, this is so complicated, it's not possible. So I told them, you have underestimated the ability of Indians to decomplicate the complicate. The reverse is also true. I will tell you a small thing. One of my classmates once went to Australia and took a part-time job while he's studying. So we texted him, what is the job you have taken? And he said, I'm working on an aquathermal treatment of ceramics under constrained environment. So we thought it's some high-tech job. Till next day he tweeted, I'm washing dishes in a restaurant, right? So many of the complications we think are really not so complicated when it is broken down in stages, which I would just show you in my next slide. So the whole challenge is, how do we bring this up? What do we do? And I'm primarily covering the urban side because the rural scheme is just getting fine-tuned, and you would see the rural scheme getting finalized probably in about next 2 weeks or whatever it is. I would not dwell much on this because I presume Secretary would cover this in detail. It's our baby. There are 4 legs which the HUPA has identified, essentially covering the entire segments where housing need is to be there. One is the in-situ redevelopment we do. States like Maharashtra have taken it to the next stage where they almost have made it self-financing to the builder by allowing them to build one set of slum redevelopment and the other as commercial buildings at high-value buildings. The CLSS scheme, which we would cover, which NHB administers, as most of you know, and has successfully now done about 142 crores out of the total 144 crores of disbursement, thanks to all of you participating with enthusiasm. The affordable housing in partnership, private-public, and subsidy for beneficiary land housing. As on date, I think 8,54,000 and odd houses, units, have been sort of sanctioned or in progress. So whenever people ask me, will it work? I always say, look at the data, which is much, much probably more than all the earlier schemes put together, with 36 states and central assistance of 12,000 and odd crores. So there is definitely traction, and if we can do much more, yes, always we could say much more could be done. So what is NHB's plan on this? As many of you know, one, we regulate and supervise the HFCs. The interest in HFCs, especially the low-cost people who do it, is amazing. Last year, we have done about 11 licenses as against 5 or 6 the previous year. And I think we have another 8 or 9 applications pending. And most of the business plans clearly talks about they want to concentrate on the low-ticket housing. And when I talk to some of my friends in HFCs or when we visit them, we find amazing amount of evolvement of underwriting standards to gauge this segment and to make that, let's say, delinquent-free, because a high delinquency will kill the entire initiative. We also have a lot of financing, as you know, but what you might not know is under the rural housing scheme till date, NHB has done about 24,000 and odd crores with 15 lakh units, and under the urban housing fund, about 6,000 units with 1.7. A total of about 30,000 with 17.3 lakh units. On the promotion and development, we are now doing a lot of capacity building for the sector. One of the initiatives which we had taken is creating intellectual capital. You would have seen some of the requests of MISs, formats getting changed sometimes. As I've said in my earlier meeting, bear with us. We are trying to evolve a complete credit, not only credit, a data analysis, so that most of the data will come back to you as an opportunity or as a warning saying this sector is eating up, this segment is eating up, take care of it. We have also commissioned some of the research studies. One is the insurance on properties and MRTA, which at this point in time, I'm not sure how the end customer is fully getting benefited. But again, we want to look at it when the data comes in. And a land acquisition study, how we could help it. As I said, on the CLSS, we have done about 142 crores. with 57 PLIs and 8,327 households with 29 states. We are revamping the Residex. A lot of you ask me what is happening to the Residex. We are completely, and I thank Hoopa for giving us a lot of inputs and contribution there. We are now reworking it so that it would reflect completely the market value, which will be coupled with a building materials index and a rental index. So when you start using it, it will be a composite kind of data, composite kind of output which you could see. We are working with the states on stamp duty and registration, and I would cover that a little later. And as I said, the research studies. I've covered the cumulative disbursements, so I'm moving on. The other one which always I get is, can you get a lot of funds? Yes, we are working on bilateral funding, which will be only channelized through banks or housing finance companies. For the World Bank Fund, many of you is used. We have already disbursed $45.3 million on it. And I'm told that this is probably the first time World Bank is seeing so much of traction. They are taking the India Urban Low-Cost Housing Fund disbursements as an example to many of the third world countries. We also are DFID funding. We have got 50 million. I think we have disbursed about 20 million or so. No, 20 million or so. And then we are also working with KFW for a energy fund or a green energy fund, which again we would pass it on to you. So as I said, stamp duty and registration, because we think it's one of the primary factors which is sort of help to reduce the cost, especially on the low value. The stamp duty on conveyance deed, registration charges on mortgage deed, as you all know, has taken to in some of the states to the level of 6% to 12%. The Minister of Hoopa announced in the last ASOCHAM meeting, Sri Venkaiah Naidu ji announced that he has already written to all the states, and independently the Hoopa ministry and us during all our meetings or talking to the states, can we rationalize it down to probably 1 or 2%. We are also in the process of commissioning a study where we could, with data, go and prove to the state governments by reducing it for the low-cost housing, 10 or 15 lakhs, it wouldn't significantly affect the revenue, and on the contrary, might actually increase the revenue because of the offtakes. Just a small working here, because sometimes I get asked, how does it benefit? If you take a working, look at it, if the interest rate is 9.5% in 15 years, loan amount of 7.2 lakhs, this is how the subsidized interest rate works, with an upfront, clearly the loan amount coming down on a 7.2 lakhs to 5 lakhs with a 2.3 lakhs benefit. And from NHB side, the last few disbursements have been given at 4 days, not even 4 working days. Our target is anyway to give it within 10 days, so that before the first EMI hits the customer, you are able to pass on the principal reduction to the customer in his account. So what are the sort of way forward? We just put the entire specs to sum it up. One is urban population is expected to grow by 1 crore per annum. Amount required is 2 trillion, but I'm told by many of the private equity players today that if we have a very transparent system, getting money on the affordable housing segments is not such a big issue. Land is another challenge which is working on. I think government has made some amendments already to the land acquisition and is working on more. 30 to 35% of housing cost consists of fees and taxes. Work in progress with the state government in a federal structure. 6 crore houses between urban and rural. And 70%, as we know, is required in the segment, and 30% is in 2 states. So this is the total facts if we put together where the opportunity lies and the challenges. Now, what are the reforms which probably we are discussing and government and us are working on? One, decentralize decision making, streamline approval process, relook at building development norms. All three put together, most of the state governments, especially the Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, are all in progress. Gujarat, we had a long meeting. They have said they are able to give approval with the present process within 35 to 40 days. Telangana is talking. I believe they moved the industry already to an automatic deemed approval process, and they are saying below a particular level flats, they will move to a deemed approval process. Madhya Pradesh has moved completely online, and I believe from the 7 or 8 stages, they are working on to reduce it to 3 stages. Gujarat is moving towards a single window approval. Many of the states, UP is working with us, Tamil Nadu is working with us to get this done. So many of the states is happening. While you're saying there is a lot happening behind the scenes to get this approval process, because we are all aware that if I cut down the 2-year time frame to start the construction to probably 4 or 5 months, there is cost benefit to the customer. The KPMG report, and this I quote from there, said form a nodal agency to coordinate effort of various stakeholders. I could say that NHB is working as that nodal agency. Empower the EWS, LIG households. We talked about CLSS. No better empowerment. As I always say, in the first 2 meetings when HUPA hadn't even published their booklet, there's complete disbelief. People said this cannot be true when we said there is a 6.5% subsidy to be passed on upfront. Revise rental laws to promote rental housing stock. I think rental laws is under progress, and we have also been part of a couple of discussions. Rationalize fees and taxes, we just covered the action in place. Infrastructure status, yes, once the RERA Act gets implemented, I think it's only a question of time before they get the infrastructure changes. Channelize higher funding in housing. NHB is willing to do it with the bilateral. We saw SEBI announcing a relaxation last week on their funding requirements of the take the percentage which the mutual funds could take. I thought I read something today, but I haven't gone through it fully, that government is going to release some PF funds, right? Something came in today. In fact, PFRD chairman was supposed to be here. He couldn't be here. He said he will talk on long-term housing, what they plan to do. Unfortunately, he was called for another meeting. Schedule reduce cost and overruns in housing project. Once the approvals become automatic and simple, I think this would automatically happen because it is more in the interest of the builders to reduce the time run and promote mass housing construction technologies, which HUPA is working on. We at least have seen 3, 4, and last time when I was in Gujarat, the Gujarat Chamber of Commerce said they have come out with this one which they could put a 4-storied house in probably 12 hours, right? They are going to make a presentation shortly. Let's see how it works. From the government side, a couple of things. First time house buyers concession has been given. Rationalization of tax for securitization, which was a big demand. Tax exemption to builders has been given. Of course, we would have been happy if the amount has been raised to 10 lakhs or 12 lakh houses, but it's not a bad thing to have a complete tax exemption if you complete on time. And all these activities, the proof of pudding, as they say, is in eating. I don't know, yesterday you saw the Cushman Oakville report, which had come in Mint. Total launches across segments rose by 17% from a year ago to something like 60,000 apartments, right? Most of it they are saying is in EWS, LIG, at least 50% of this. And these are all private, outside the data what we had given on the government. Highest supply of affordable housing is in cities like Bangalore, Pune and Bombay. Total launches in Bombay is probably the highest. So what I am saying is to make the whole dream come true, and in a federal structure like our country, it's a grand coalition between center, state, urban local bodies, public agencies, builders and financial intermediaries and regulators like us. We are all the agents, executors and implementers of this grand goal. But executing such a large goal needs sustainable commitment, a great dedication and utmost devotion. I think this is an opportunity for us to make this happen, to take the housing for all. And I end with the outgoing President, Mr. Barack Obama's quote, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we have been waiting for, and we are the change that we seek. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind.
Thank you so very much, sir. And once again, may I request the presence of Ms. Thar on stage as we thank sir. Thank Thank you once more.